What's up, guys? I hope you're doing well. Um, so if you couldn't tell from both just the website and all the videos and stuff like that, I really enjoy like looking at things from a very zoomed out perspective. I like the macro point of view, like macroeconomics, just movements and everything. I always thought it was interesting in watching uh, big developments and stuff like that. One of those that could possibly be coming up recently, and just kind of as a disclaimer, I'm not a huge crypto guy. Sorry. Um, it's not really my forte. I think it's interesting, and I do have a lot of coding experience, but it's just not something it's not how I roll when it comes to finance, to say the least. But still, there's some of the things that I think it's definitely worth paying attention to, just to say the least. And with that in mind, looking at this screen share. And so basically, Larry Fink announces BlackRock's growing interest in digital assets, right? The CEO of BlackRock multinational investment management company, Larry Fink, is focusing more on cryptocurrency investments. Fink has said that his company is taking a global approach to adopting digital asset investments, right? So one of the things that and the reason I bring up macro trends and stuff like that, um, is basically when you think about it and you have some new asset class or whatever, you kind of start with like, um, at least with crypto, from what I can tell, and I think one of the reasons why it's very, very interesting is the fact that it kind of flipped the whole progression on its head in terms of how an asset class kind of comes to be. Because it seems like, you typically start at the big fish level. So like governments, and then it goes down to institutions, and then it trickles down into eventually retail investors get involved. Um, so yeah, but with crypto, it was kind of flipped to where it started at the bottom with retail investors, it seemed. And then it seems like, okay, now we're starting to have, like, we have companies and stuff that are dealing very heavily in it. Obviously, there's whole companies based purely off of crypto now. Um, which I think they actually bring up one down later called like Circle, I think. Was the name of it? Yeah, Circle, which is the company behind the USDC stablecoin, um, which again I haven't looked into Circle as a company or whatever yet. I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about this in general, about like major, especially BlackRock going into crypto kind of headlong, especially in any serious fashion. Because when you're talking about that kind of money, it's kind of a big deal to say the least. Um, and another thing, I'm not 100% sure if, like, maybe since the reason I say I'm not 100% sure on this next statement is because there's no quotes, obviously, from Larry Fink himself. Uh, Basically, all just I guess, Ali Raza is how you say his name, the guy who wrote this. And also look at the website. Like, come on, you can tell what kind of skew they have. They have a tab that says "Buy Crypto." It's named Inside Bitcoins, but apparently, it's Fink's opinion that the progress made by Bitcoin threatened the dominance of the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. Um, and then he showed further support for cryptocurrencies when he predicted that Bitcoin could be used as a source of value. However, to achieve this, Bitcoin needed time to prove its capabilities. According to what this article says, what Fink says. So take whatever merit you want from that. But one of the things that I think is very interesting with this kind of stuff, right? Um, One, with the whole affecting the dominance of the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. So the problem with that is, like, it's the world's reserve currency for a reason, and it's this kind of massive network effect. Um, and so basically, you have to think about it from the perspective of the banks and the monetary system, which is something I do have a lot more knowledge on than crypto. That's kind of more along my lines. It's more my forte. Um, It's kind of the typical monetary system and how that stuff works. At least it's one of my major interests in what I look into, which you will definitely see if you go to my website, um, which it's just a bunch of posts and stuff. But so how to word this? It's mostly the network effect of the US dollar that really Bitcoin would be going up against. Not necessarily like it's not Bitcoin isn't going up against the dollars in your wallet per se. It's going up the entire international monetary system, including the Eurodollar system and shadow banking and all of that other good stuff that can be rather difficult to understand if you don't spend a lot of time studying it. Um, there's a lot that goes into that. And I don't agree. Um, and that's one of those things, kind of bringing up this video and article is really bringing that to mind is like, I disagree with this statement, or not that it's of his opinion, obviously, but of the fact that, does Bitcoin threaten the dominance of the US dollar as the world's reserve currency? Um, and it's not the whole like you don't understand Bitcoin, whatever. um that's probably the only, when I say I don't pay attention or crypto's not my forte, I'm talking about the industry as a whole, not Bitcoin specifically. I've looked a lot into Bitcoin specifically. All the other ones, not really. um Bitcoin, I think, is something, even if you don't use the currency, I think the technology and like the whole like blockchain technology and all of that kind of stuff is something that could be applicable to many other forms of just services and stuff that we need in daily life that would make things so much easier, like voting and stuff like that. Um, at least put a lot of I love the idea of Bitcoin from kind of a libertarian perspective. The whole decentralized nature is, I think it's necessary. Um, but there's also the reason I bring this up with the whole reserve currency status of the US dollar is there are a lot of like big fish, I guess, for lack of a better term, on the world that their entire wealth and everything's predicated on the US dollar and its dominance. So, I don't know, it's something that's I might, the more I think about it, and this is the reason for the videos, is to kind of is forcing me to talk out loud and really give my ideas. And so, one, while I'm doing this and trying to explain my point of view, I'm also poking holes in my own point of view. And I fully welcome it from you guys as well. Um, Especially if it's in, you know, any form of constructive way. It's like it's supposed to be more like this. I disagree with how you said this, or I disagree with this concept for this reason. That stuff is fully welcome all the time. That's literally the point of doing these videos. Is one, to get my ideas out there, um, so that other people can poke holes in them, make my argument sounder, help me understand as well, and hopefully help others understand too, um, and not just a single echo chamber perspective per se. Um, but apparently, BlackRock's also throwing money into it as well. So BlackRock is making strategic investments in the cryptocurrency sector. Earlier in the week, Circle, the company behind the USDC stablecoin, received a $400 million funding, and BlackRock was among the key investors. BlackRock further announced a partnership with Circle to look into the use cases of the USDC stablecoin in the capital markets. So yeah, my biggest thing on especially crypto in general is not necessarily just the whole currency perspective. It's the whole, where could this technology be used and actually be used well, and not dominated by governments per se. Um, I don't know. This one was a lot more of just thinking out loud, to be honest. And even just from this video, I at least from my perspective, I think I obviously need to think about this more, and maybe especially the world reserve currency argument, because I have a lot more knowledge about the monetary um, system side of things. That's where I spent most of my time studying, and so kind of getting how crypto will go into that would be very helpful, especially because it seems like this stuff's here to stay. Um, unless governments come in and try to basically regulate it out of existence. But I don't know. We'll see, or they'll make their own. Who knows? It's not a it's not a conspiracy theory that the Federal Reserve is already talking about and kind of starting to implement the beginnings of a central bank digital currency. I think I even did a video on that one a long time ago. One of the first videos on this, because it was an actual speech and a white paper, I believe, from one of the Fed chairs, going over just that, the purpose of a CBDC, and which is a central bank digital currency, and going into some of the risks, some of the pros and cons, and some of that stuff. That's on the Federal Reserve's website itself, the official .gov one, not some random. Who knows what other websites are out there? To be honest, the internet can be crazy to say the least. But anyways, that's all I got for this one. And to be completely honest, I would love some comments on this as well, because this one was mostly just thinking out loud, and I obviously don't have very. My views on this aren't 100% in cement. And that's kind of, I mean, they should never be 100% cemented anyway, I think. Um, Now, it's definitely with certain things your views can go further and further and further, right? Where you're more certain on something. But to say that something's 100% true, especially a very opinionated thing with these kind of pseudosciences like economics and that kind of stuff, to where it's not like exact cause effect. There's a lot of cross currents, and it's very situational, and you have to deal with a lot of case studies, and there's a lot that goes into it. um, but anyways, not to rant too much longer, but I would love, honestly, please comment. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm right. I don't care. I really want to discuss this further and think about it, because I haven't really thought about it much. And again, that's the whole point of the videos. So, anyways, I hope you guys have a good night, and I will see you on the next.